Always check your children's Halloween candy. Always. I'm not saying this for fear monger. To tell you the truth, I realize that most of the candy handed out on the holiday is likely purchased at Walmart the day before and shoved into a plastic pumpkin shaped bowl. You've probably realized that most sane people don't poison candy or put glass in it or whatever cautionary urban legend you've heard. The only guy who did so to his own son. So those neighbors of yours, don't treat them like criminals. They're just trying to innocently give those kiddos some sweets. This warning regards to the phenomenon that has no apparent origin. What I mean is, no one is really sure of where it comes from. The candy in question isn't even so. You can't purchase it anywhere in stores and looking up for them online with no results. The candy aforementioned phenomenon appears to be that of a cinnamon jawbreaker, not to be confused with the atomic fireball brand or any kind of similar sweet. It may resemble a red tinted gumball or on a red lollipop with no stick. The point being, it's rather generic in its appearance, to which it makes it tricky to spot the real deal. The candy is sometimes branded under the H Sweets Company, a corporation that doesn't exist. At least, that not one registered by any agency since 1999. If you research the internet, you might find some Sweets business. But I assure you, they aren't the real deal, merely namesake coincidence. If the label carries name beneath the tagline that will read something to the effect of hot as hell, sweet as heaven, not all the candies sport the branding, but they certainly help to spot. This is why I advise if you find yourself or your kids any unmarked red candy, the safest bet is to throw the sucker away. Documentation of the phenomenon only dates back to 2007, but there are the possibility that is gone on far longer, as it isn't this recording. A known 9 people investigate the candy, 4 of which being children under the age of 18. Each case has happened on October 31st, with the most cases occurring during 2016, with a total of 3 victims. The only 3 clues as to this candy's appearance and branding is through the eyes of witnesses, and the subsequent investigations of any nearby and opened candy wrappers. Each of the victims' corpses, aside from the heads, remain untouched. The heads, however, where the things get strange. Each of the heads completely burnt, unlike a used match. This would make identifications of the victims troublesome, except for the fact that the fingerprint analysis lent from lifting the nature of these deaths, considering the hands of the deceased were completely intact. None of the victims were related in any way, with the only exception of being a father and his 9-year-old daughter, Andy and Mary Kay Winifred from Lexington, Virginia. All the others share no relations other than the aforementioned candy. An eyewitness report from Beaufort, North Carolina, documented the full story behind the mysterious death of a 12-year-old boy, Shane Davis, who died on Halloween of 2009. I was leaving the pharmacy around 8:30 when it happened. Davis was walking down the block in a zombie costume. I didn't even notice him at first because it was so dark, and the costume was dark. But then there was this flash of orange light, like someone lighting a candle. I turned around and this heat wave hit me in the face, and the smell, oh lord, it smelled like cooked meat. His head was on fire, and there were people screaming, but there was nothing we could do. He screamed for only a minute, and then he hit the pavement. He'll never unsee it. There were rumors around this hex from a witch or something. I'm not a superstitions man, but whenever you see something like that, superstition doesn't mean too far off, you know? Similar reports are documented for many of the victims shortly after ingesting the candy. The victim's head would burst into flames, and soon thereafter, the victim would soon succumb to the injury and die. Many rumors and theories have since popped up surrounding the deaths of the candy. Many include witches, spells, Some had garnered after significant, following the beyond the original folklore. One of the most popular rumors cites the deaths as a result of the 1782 execution of Henry Halson Cassidy, H. Cassidy, a candy maker from Onaucock, Virginia. The site was the first documentation death from 2007. Cassidy, a local candy maker, was placed on trial for the disappearance of two young girls from the neighboring town. Despite having no apparent motive for abducting two young girls, the candy maker was charged for a reasonable suspect, having access to sweets for alluring the children. Following the local investigation, where one of the girls' bodies was discovered with candy in her pocket, Cassidy was charged with the murderers and sentenced to death. Children from the town, who once loved the sweets made by the candy maker, began calling Cassidy the Witch of Onaucock, making him one of the most earliest male witches of a legend. Being found guilty in a hasty trial, Cassidy was sentenced to death by a molten metal, a process considered barbaric, except for the case of accused witch. Cassidy, who swore his innocence until his death, had molten metal ball dropped into his throat. While a quick death, it was certainly not painless. The townsfolk remarked that it was justice for served on that day, and the body was buried in the shallow grave. Given that Andy and Mary Kay Winifred were also from Virginia, many speculated that the spirit of Cassidy returned to punish those responsible for his death, using the signature candy as a way to torment the descendants of his accusers. The name too, H. Cassidy, would explain some of the on the wrappers, H. Sweets. Another popular theory is usually referred to the jack-o'-lantern story. Based on the Irish myth, the story goes that the man known as Stingy Jack tricked the devil on multiple occasions, resulting in his banishment from hell, as well as heaven, as he was a trickster at heart. The man forced to roam the earth lit coal with a turnip and had been using it since the light of the internal path. The story, clearly rooted on the Halloween tradition of carving jack-o'-lanterns, has been used to explain the candy too. Stingy Jack, as he referred to, seeks out to join him in his eternal punishment. The candy, which burns the heads of the customers, turns them to somewhat of a crude jack-o'-lantern. This would explain the fiery demise of the victims, as well as the connections of the celebration of Halloween. In conjunction with the Stingy Jack narrative, there are some who conclude that the candy at work is the devil himself, tormenting unsuspecting holiday celebrators with death merely from the fun of it. A rather sick trick, yes, but then again, mischief is a commonplace in the celebration of Halloween. As it for the Fury, HH label would stand for Hell's Hottest, or some variation of Hell altercation. Despite these varying backstories to the candy, there was far more grounded explanation than many have subscribed to. Rather than reading the HHH Sweets mythology, some conclude that HH Sweets is precisely what claims to be Candy Company. The motive for committing these crimes it is, at large, still a mystery. But with this fury cuts out claims of ghosts and devils, suggesting that a select few sickos have been willpowered to conjure up the sweets with the intention to kill. In the end, one theory is correct, at least not one that can be confirmed by traditional means. A candy that is, for lack of better term, supernatural can only be explained by the supernatural, making it extremely difficult to verify any of the information regarding it. If you wish to avoid the grisly results of the candy, it is advised to check your children's Halloween candy. Better yet, avoid the trick-or-treating tradition, or if you're highly concerned, perhaps it would be simply best to simply skip Halloween altogether.